Poetically Creative Mind podcast hosted by me, BM the Poet. This podcast is for people with a creative mind who need a little inspiration. I will be interviewing everyday people with creative minds, doing original poetry for myself and others, having inspirational conversation, and more. This podcast will be available wherever you get your podcast from. My next guest is an author, poet, and YouTuber. He just released his third poetry book, Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment. You can check out his previous two poetry books, Ecstasy of the Dead and Fate in the Dungeon of Doom. His poetry is thought-provoking and raw. He looks to demystify certain difficult life issues. He is also working on his first novel, Eden's Destiny. As well as being an author and a poet, he has his own YouTube channel, P English Literature, where he reviews books and conducts interviews with authors from around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you, Peter Okonkwo. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you so much, Mr. Brain. Thank you for having me on your show.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. So for those that don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm a Nigerian writer. I'm a poet. I soon to be a novelist and a certified orator from the Friendship Leadership Institute of Nigeria. I was born and brought up here in Akure. Akure is a city in one of the southwestern part of Nigeria. Been so fine over here so far. And, I wouldn't love to talk more about myself, just, something about myself related to the literary scene, which is basically the fact that I'm a poet, I'm a soon-to-be novelist of Eden's Destiny, I'm an editor, orator, a freelance writer, and an orator, also a book reviewer. So I think that should just be a little bit about myself.
Okay, so you say you're a soon-to-be novelist. So tell me about your soon-to-be novel that you're releasing.
Yeah, thank you so much. The title of the book is Eden's Destiny, which I've been working on since September 19th, 2019. That's over a year now, close to 2 years. The story is actually a story about a young Cameroonian who actually reside in Nigeria, and the issue concerning his education, attainment, etc., etc. So that, I think, I'm really far behind when it comes to completing it for now, which I'll always be seeking out time for, because I've been so busy with something else. I haven't really gotten my time to concentrate more on the book. But I am very sure probably next year, maybe next 2 years or 3 years, I don't know, I'll be able to get through it, because I know it's actually going to be a voluminous book, and I'm sure it has a good full shade of it.
Yeah, well, keep working at it so we can get that, your new novel, as well as your poetry books.
What
So
did you say?
I also see you have 3 poetry books as well. And
Yes.
that's a pretty good collection of poetry. Most people struggle to get one book. So tell me how that journey was for you to be able to publish 3 separate poetry books.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I've always been a fan of poetry. I've always loved to write poems right from time, and I just love to pen down as the inspiration comes to me. I love to put them down in writing. And my journey of writing poem also started 2019 back then. And if I should really calculate it, I think it's just as if I've had 3 books published within a period of 1 year, because the first publication I had was Hectares of the Dead, and it was in October. And Fate in the Dungeon of Doom was published around March, and now Whose Fault, Kismet or Impediment was published yesterday, which we're still in August. So if I should really sum it up from September to March to August, it's just within a period of, I will call it a period of 1 year. So the Ecstasy of the Dead is actually an anthology of poetry whose content are theoretical, impulsive, thoughtful, and existence-centered. It asks a lot of poems encapsulated in it, ranging from different life issues and things most containing about afterlife, etc. Then the next poetry anthology will Fate in the Dungeon of Doom, which was actually a kind of a poetry collection that seek to expand the relationship between human destiny and fate,
Mm-hmm.
with questions that if our day-to-day life activities is really in congruous with destiny, we are just living on our own, or if fate is just an anonymous destination. So I think it's, well, to me, I would call it a collection of heartbreaking, what I call it, questions, because there are a lot of questions asked along in the book which I did not ultimately provide answers to, because I actually love to live my poems in a way that the reader would have to keep thinking for themselves, finding meaning and answers to it themselves. More currently, one that I got published yesterday was Oxford Kismet Impediment, which was actually a poetry anthology also that seek to demystify the relationship between human destiny and obstacles. We've always experienced obstacle in one area of our life or the other. As human being, everyone has definitely experienced obstacle in one area of their life. And the foresight to discern what mission, what role that this particular obstacle has come to play in our life. Some people can actually find it very wholesome, while some people find it very difficult to navigate through the impediment. So all of this is what I actually seek to expand in the poetry anthologies.
So were these poetry books inspired by personal obstacles that you faced in your life to try and help others overcome those obstacles as well?
Well, I wouldn't I wouldn't really say that there are some sort of personal obstacles fixed alongside, but I would stylishly, let me use the word stylishly or furtively
I
also.
like that word. I like that word.
Yeah, I would like to just say stylishly say that also. And again, based on my knowledge, being a philosophical being, because I actually love to expound on difficult things. I love to write about the hard issues of life. I love things that are not just mundane. I love, talking about things that are not just common, because, my sort of poetry is not as if my sort of poetry is something that is quite very uncommon. I would like to use the word uncommon because I love to talk about philosophical being. I love to seek for knowledge, for wisdom to the highest peak of understanding. And I even love to go even beyond my intellectual resolution. So I wouldn't really say, I can stylishly say that some of it are based on personal obstacles, even though, the writing, the poems contained in it, you cannot really say that they are based on my personal obstacle, because the tone of the narrator is actually very different, because the book is made up of two parts. The first part is the poems of obstacles, which are basically up to 40 poems collection there. You can start seeking. Then the second poem is about other poems. So the tone is actually different, and the sort of life issues that's addressed to. I wouldn't say that I've also been in that shoe. So it's just a real collection of what the relationship between human fate and obstacle acts to play in our life.
Okay, that's a great explanation of that. So, are all three of your books connected? Do you need to read one to gather a feeling for the next two, or do they have separate entities about them? Do they all tell different stories?
Yes, I think they have different stories. They have different ideas, because the first one works, like I said earlier on, it's an anthology of poetry that's Ecstasy of the Bird, which is an anthology of poetry that is actually thoughtful, existence centered, and addresses some certain life issues. But I can really say that Fate in the Dungeon of Doom and Oxford Kismet or Impediment seems to be a little bit quite stylishly similar. I would like to say that they are similar, but not really that similar, because they have different ideas they seek to, expound on. They have different ideas with which they seek to reveal. They have different ideas with which they seek to demystify. Like I said earlier on, Fate in the Dungeon of Doom is actually a poetry anthology that seeks to, explain the difference between human fate and destiny, because I actually love to expound on the theories of the human fate. I love to call myself a fatalistic writer, which basically love expounding in a philosophical manner the issue attached to human fate and human existence. In Fate in the Dungeon of Doom, I seek to expound if our day-to-day life activities is in agreement with our fate. if we human beings have the power to control our fate, if fate or destiny is a making of ourself or an anonymous destination. So all of these are those gruesome questions, are those breathtaking poems that I actually have in Fate in the Dungeon of Doom. Like, and you can even read through some of the reviews on Amazon. Some people will say it depicts, the book of Job. Some people will say, oh, I found myself swimming in the poem. Some people will say, oh, the poem resonates with me and it left me thinking about the path that I've taken throughout my own life. That is actually, even though it's tightly related to fate also. So the third one, whose fault, Kismet or impediment. The word Kismet is also synonymous to destiny. It is synonymous to human fate. So
Mhm.
here it's a little bit like a swift in perception. Now, like one of the person who gave me praise for the book, and Mrs. Aden Laurie Oluta is also the author of the Brack's Bride. She was like, "Oh, I find that the book is this third book is like a follow up of the second book because there are some themes that moves. Like this third book, I actually sat down and I was thinking, what sort of role do obstacles come to play in our life as humans? What can we really call obstacle? Could we call it? Can we say it's a making of God Himself, or we really need to wrestle with the invisible force of impediment? Or what should we human beings do when we are faced with diverse chronic life-taking, obstacles of life? And what should we term it? Should we accept it, or should we just, all of these are those kind of questions that I actually seek expound on this thought poetry ontology, and it come in a kind of a dynamic manner. It come through a narrator, the word narrator I, because the fox poem is the poems of obstacle, and the way the narrator or the way the poem was written, it was written on a personal, the word, the pronoun I. It's used by the word pronoun I. So, but the second part asks a lot of explanation. So I would say that there are some similarities because they both expound on the philosophical importance or demystification of the human fate. Fate in the Dungeon of the talk about human fate. Also, this current one also expound on human fate, as I being a fatalistic writer.
And that's the great thing about poetry. You can send people in so many different directions with your words. Like you said, some people it makes them think deeply. Some people it expresses some type of emotion for them. That is a beautiful thing. And you have three
Yeah,
books that allow people to
to
get that
think.
insight, dig deeper into themselves, really,
Yes, yes.
because that's what you really want out of poetry is to dig into that emotional side of you. That's the great thing about poetry over most other genre of material, I guess you could say. That this really gives it can give people a personal insight to you as well as themselves and build that connection. So
Yeah,
you speak about faith and spirituality. So how
yeah.
does that play a role with the work that you put out?
Fate. I wouldn't. Fate is like, if I should divine it, it's an inevitable, outcome of a man's life. It is an event. It's an unforeseen event that it's actually going to happen or be, irrespective of how humans try to alter it or frustrate it. Fate it's I would say it's an ordained pathway of we human being that we must surely tread on, irrespective of what it is. So this ideology actually, wants me actually, leave me in a state of imagination. I just love to sit and think far beyond the ordinary. I love to climb hills philosophically and to expound on human wisdom. So, in one of my attempts to demystify the realness of human fate amidst obstacle and maybe stylishly spirituality, I was like, if fate is an adverse, let me not use the word adverse, if fate is an inevitable outcome of a man's life, then how can you term those people, maybe for instance, a soldier who died at the cause of a war, would you call it that is his fate? Or those people who died because of the bad issues or who died in war. Maybe a country is waging war against another. Would you term it an adverse effect? And what happens when human being is faced with diverse life difficult issues? Would we say it's fate at that time? And all of this is actually what I seems to demystify. Like one of the interview I had some times ago with RX TV in the United States, they asked me if I can summarize, or if I have the opinion that faith is a spiritual thing, or it is something that we have control over as human. And I was like, I actually cannot give answers to that because I am not God. God is the ultimate. So comparing faith to spirituality, there is a kind of I would say there is a relationship that exists between faith and spirituality, because faith itself, since we do not know it, since it is, like I would say, it's an abstract now, it falls under the category of an abstract ground. It's something that we cannot see with our physical eyes, we cannot touch it as an object, and we cannot felt it, but it is something that we live by day. It is something that it is incongruous with our life. It is something that, even the fact that I'm speaking with you now, I would say it is fate that made me to speak with you. So all of this is what actually seek to demystify between human faith and obstacle. And there is a great connection between spirituality and faith, because if we do not know faith, if we cannot term faith, if we don't know our power over faith based on our mortal self, then we can seek to gain power over faith through the spiritual realm. So I think there is a large sort of connection between spirituality and faith. In fact, faith itself is spiritual. We live by it every day. And since we do not know what awaits us tomorrow, then we can say, okay, we do not know our faith. Like I'm speaking, I actually do not know my faith, even though I trust God for my faith. And that's where the spirituality of faith comes in.
Beautiful answer. What helps you to create your beautiful work? Because you definitely need faith to get through life sometimes. Because you sometimes just step out there, like I said, stepping out on faith. You have a YouTube channel where you review books and interview other authors as well. So tell
Yeah.
me something about that experience and what made you decide to make that YouTube channel.
Yes, actually, started the YouTube channel with the aim of reviewing books by independent published authors, like new authors who are still struggling to gain a voice of themselves.
Yeah.
I created the channel in order to, review books by new authors, self-published authors. Unlike sometimes the other booktubers, when they're watching my channel, they'll be like, "Oh, Peter, most of the book you review are new. I've not even heard of it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, because most of the books are independently published, coming directly from the author. Like they do send it to me, and I was like, 'Oh, Peter, please could you let me review your book on my channel?' And I'll be like, 'Okay, that's fine.' And if I like the book, then I would actually schedule an interview with the author so we can discuss it better. So, although sometimes I might, review books that from already established authors, like I did for Ray and Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, which I actually reviewed, I think, a week past, just to keep it, lively, so it will not be, so it won't be boring of most books from independent published authors. So I created the book and the channel with the aim to connect with authors around the world, offer and help, and help them to get more awareness on their works. And I really hope that the channel really grow, because I think currently I'm in 697 subscribers. I'm looking forward to make it keep booming, so more people and more authors and more writers can be aware of it.
Yeah, because that is an important part of getting out there, especially when you self-publish. It's extremely difficult for those who self-publish to get that
Yes,
publicity. So somebody like you out here doing that, that's a wonderful thing. And I'm sure everyone appreciates that because, like I said, it's very difficult being out there on your own with no
no
machine
word.
behind you to push you. So has there been any books recently that you reviewed that you just pulled in by? Others who haven't checked out your channel, they may want to check out the book, and then that'll help lead them towards your channel. Has there been any books that you reviewed lately that have pulled you in?
Yes, the book that actually reviewed recently that I really love, I would say it's that of Ryan Holiday. I wouldn't say this one was not reviewed recently. It was reviewed in time past. I think 6 months ago. Fearless Can't Be the Movement of a Gotcha by Shanabaka. I love that book because it actually chronicles Shanabaka's downward dilapidating panic attack, agoraphobia, depression that actually sequestered her to stay in a home for over a year. I don't know if you've actually heard about Shanabaka. She's an award-winning American author of Fearless Conquering the Movement of Gatry. She's also a filmmaker and she's the one behind Isabel. So I actually love that book because it is very emotional. It is so well vexed into African and even American Indian spirituality. It is vexed into mental health advocacy and some other things related to mental health, agoraphobia, panic attack, depression, anxiety, addiction, name it. I love it, and I think my review of our book, it's one of the highest number of views on the channel so far, and it is very, very interesting. And recently, I also read Mariah Day's Chasing Fate, which I think, or she told me that most of the story resonates with her own life experience, and it was very wholesome. It looks very wholesome. I actually haven't read a book that I had to shed a tear, but a
Wow.
book made me. I couldn't believe it because I was on my table. I was holding my pen, and when I read a particular section, tear rolls down from my eye. I was like, "What the fuck, Peter? You're crying."
But that's a great thing that that book could evoke that type of emotion out of you without you even expecting or
So,
anticipating that.
I'm actually I would call myself I'm an emotional writer myself. I love things that do make me emotional. I love things that will pull me like inside a book. So what I was reading is a story. Is a She said it's a fiction story, but I don't think it's a fiction story. We writer for one or two reasons would like to write a story about our life and tell me the fiction. Even though it's not a fiction, we just give it fictional characters. Give your father, you can give him another name and write a story and call it a fiction. It's very gruesome. It is heartbreaking. It is emotional. I love it. I'm looking forward to filming it and editing it so I can post it on my YouTube channel. Chasing Fate by Mariah Day. It is very fantastic. I was like, wow, Peter, you shed tears reading this book. And I also left a review of it on Amazon. I love it absolutely.
Now you got me very intrigued about it because at times I can be emotional, so I don't know if I want to read it either because I may start crying as well. Don't say,
It's
"Damn it, Peter, look what you did to me."
It's a love story. It's a love story, but it acts most of tragic scene compared to the plot twist of love story itself. Most of the chapters are very tragic, absolutely tragic. I was shocked. I've actually never read a book and I cried. So the book took tears. I quickly had to get some handkerchief. I have to wipe my tears away.
Look, that's outstanding for you to be able to connect with what did she say, a fictional book.
It's a fictional. I even told her, I was like, Mrs. Mary, I shed tears while reading your book. She was like, wow, Peter, thank you so much. And even when I sent my written review to her, she was like, wow, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I was like, you shouldn't appreciate me. You should appreciate yourself writing a fantastic book. And I told her that the book actually reads like a movie. I told her if she would be willing to, because she actually lives in the United States, though she's a Nigerian. So I told her to probably look out for some Nollywood filmmakers, submit it, and let them put it for movie. It's a nice book that fits movie. Honestly, very nice novel.
That's a beautiful thing. So, do you have any poems that you would like to recite?
Okay, yes. The most currently book that I have, Osfort, Kismet or Impediment, and I'll be reading the poem titled The Obstacles That Precedes Fate. The Obstacles That Precedes Fate. It goes thus. I've been beset with delay. My life has once languished and swum in the ocean of impediment. Sometimes I cry, lose hope, and wish that the world ends in a dot. The land of my heart mourns, and my harp of it flitters away. I shed rivers of tears with little or no idea that the delay I currently experience is the path to my fate? How should I have believed that there are tears that comes before destiny? Who knows the way better than God? Who can tell if the success of today are the success of our fate? Nor judge if the failures of today are truly failures. I've come to think of it that God wouldn't have delayed me if the path I choose was in line with my destiny. He wouldn't have hindered me if I unknowingly hadn't derailed from the right track. It wouldn't have made me walk slowly if the path I trod on is truly the way to my fortune. I am of the notion that the delay came to save me from undesirable fate. I just might not know it because I am in a hurry after I've seen my mate succeed while mine tarries. I forgot that he once said that his covenant will he not break, nor change the things that has gone out of his mouth. Though I might have to painfully persevere, but the things I do not understand are crystal clear before God, and there is a reason behind every obstacles that comes my way. I've learned that the closer a man is to his destiny, the closer or intense obstacle becomes. And a man that is far away from his destiny often has a life free from obstacles. In regards to this, I've learned to thank the tender obstacles because I'm getting closer to my fate. And the more a man gets to the brink of a breakthrough, the more likely he faces challenges. But why can't he just live without them? Must he experience it at all cost? An obstacle, a cause that precedes every human creation? Only God knows the right decision. And we sometimes, even though often cannot tell what tomorrow truly holds, a man could propose, yet God dispose. There is an obstacle that leads to fate. Yes, the one we often do not know. There is a failure that is connected to our destiny. Whoever said it is not so need to be enlightened. My poem might sound weird, yet it is not our tears made by the maker of sight, and there shouldn't have been a need for tears if we've got no eye to see tomorrow. Great destinies are preceded by chronic obstacles. Only the meticulous, positive minded ones could discern, overcome, and realize it. Nothing good comes swiftly. The greater the trials that comes our way, the greater the blessing we will enjoy. There is an obstacle that leads one to fate, thus putting an end to the days of mourning. And the things that once hurt us become a story narrated to encourage the weak, hopeless, dejected, and frustrated ones. The heavier the challenge, the greater the victory. And sometimes we get to the palace, we had to pass through the pit. Wasn't he himself crucified before resurrection? He had to bear the obstacle to die for our sin, through which we all might have eaten life. Joseph had to be sold to slavery before he became the prime minister. How would there be a reward without a challenge? The path of faith might cause the tearing of our eyes, but that doesn't mean that faith is dead. No, it won't be realized. Get your loins together and strengthen yourself. There is an obstacle that precedes faith, and just might be leading you somewhere. Remember when you cry that some tears precedes destiny. Remember when you cry that some tears precedes destiny. The obstacle that precedes fate. That's from Whose Fault, Kismet, or Impediment.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Appreciate you taking the time to read those poems to us and giving us some look into what to expect out of all three of your wonderful books. Poetry is very
Right?
deep. And sir, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Could you tell people your social media so they can follow you and like you and share your work and become part of your work?
P English Literature. A simple search of P English Literature on YouTube will bring out my channel. I'm also on Instagram with my name, Peter Okonkwo. If you search on Instagram, Peter Okonkwo, you would find me there. My bio, you find it there where I write my author, etc. I'm also on Twitter with the name Peter Okonkwo. I'm on Facebook with the name Peter Okonkwo. Even though I don't have any picture on my Facebook page, I just love it that way. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Goodreads. So basically, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, that's where I'm most active, and people can find me out there anytime. And Twitter.
Okay, well, Peter, I would like to thank you for joining us and
Thank
giving
you.
us some insight into your beautiful work.
Thank
I
you
look
so
forward
much.
to hearing more from you and seeing your review of your book on your channel.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on this journey with me. Please follow me at BM the Poet on Instagram and BM the Poet on Twitter. Please rate it 5 stars, subscribe, and share. Have a good evening.